Hello, dental hygiene students. We're going to be talking about digital scanning or intraoral scanning. This is on chapter 15 in your dental materials book on page 351. So we're going to be discussing digital impressions. So 53% of dental practices are currently using intraoral scanners according to the Journal of American Dental Association. This is from 2001. I do believe that these numbers could be growing. The link here will take you to that article if you want to read it. So it's important to learn about the basics of digital impressions or intraoral scanning, because chances are you're going to encounter it once you go into those private practices, because they are being utilized more and more as opposed to your traditional impressions. All right, so let's talk about the vocabulary. So a digital scan is digital technology that creates a computer-generated replica of the hard and the soft tissues of the oral cavity. It uses enhanced digital photography. So depending on the machine itself, it's either going to take multiple still images or it's going to take a video of that intraoral cavity. Then you have your digital scan technician. So this is actually a person who has completed a training program that's approved by the Board of Dentistry to take digital scans of intraoral and extraoral hard and soft tissues for use specifically in teledentistry. You have your digital work order. This is an equivalent of a written dental lab work order that's used in the construction or repair of an appliance. So this is from the doctor. So what is an intraoral scanner? Well, it's a device that's often shaped like a wand or a pen, and it captures 3D digital impressions. It uses the data to produce a detailed image of the patient's mouth, and the image can be viewed on a computer screen or used to fabricate dental restorations. So this picture here is of the CIRAC, and again, there are multiple machines that do the same thing. So how do you choose an intraoral scanner? Well, you want to make sure that it's easy to use. You want to make sure that it's easy to learn how to use it, and that the accuracy and precision of those digital impressions are good, because we want to make sure that the appliances actually fit, right? We want to make sure that the software capability and speed is up to par. So we want to make sure that that machine, we're able to use it with what we have in our office. So if we have Dentrix or EagleSoft, we want to make sure that it's compatible with that computer system. And the speed, well, we don't want to take 20 minutes or more trying to take a digital scan. Cost is always important. We don't want it to be terribly expensive, because then it's going to be impossible for the office to be able to provide the service to the patients. So there's different types of digital impression systems. So all of these actually have continuous video capturing. They do all show images in color, and all of these can be used with any manufacturer's products. There is one that uses a powder in order to be able to scan that. And it doesn't show it in your book. So I don't know exactly what the name of it is, but use of powder. So some systems require that the teeth are coated with an opaque powder so that the machine can actually capture the image of those teeth. So why do we want to use a digital scan or digital impressions? Well, traditional impressions techniques are very sensitive. They're often voids or air bubbles, which can create an issue with creating the appliance or the appliance actually fitting the patient correctly. Not only that, but the patients, they're not always fans of your typical impression material because it tends to make them gag a little bit, right? So patients don't necessarily like it. So cons of traditional impressions, they are temperature sensitive, right? If that material is too hot or too cold, it's either going to set too fast or set too slow. Okay? If that material or that impression after it's been taken is to be transported over state lines or from place to place, again, it's temperature sensitive, so it can distort on the way there. Voids in that impression, again, can cause issues with the appliance fitting correctly. There can be distortions with the material. There can be tearing, and those can be missing the margins in order to make the appliance, and the appliance will not fit. So learning curve. They will require a digital scanner or intraoral scanner is going to require some training. There is a learning curve to it. Okay, there is a learning curve with any new technology that's introduced into the dental practice, so this is no different. But we want to make sure everybody in the office, dental assistant, dental hygienist, dentist, those are the three that can take an intraoral scan. Okay, we want to make sure that they're properly trained. Now, some companies will come to the office and train the staff, or some companies require that you go to a set place where the manufacturer is in order to provide training. Those state boards have not yet regulated the use of intraoral scanners. However, you want to make sure that you look at the state. So this here is what Virginia is saying. So in March 2020, the Virginia legislature passed a law that's related to teledentistry, authorizing performance of digital scanning by digital scan technicians. And if you go back to the vocabulary, I explained what a digital scan technician is, and it needs to be someone who is trained and has had training that's approved by the board. Okay, so digital scans, this is straight from the Virginia Board of Dentistry here. Digital scans are used in the practice of dentistry. No person other than a dentist, dental hygienist, dental assistant 1 or dental assistant 2, or a digital scan technician or other person under the direction of a dentist can obtain a scan. So it has to be under the direction of the dentist. All right. A digital scan technician who obtains dental scans for use in the practice of teledentistry needs to work under the direction of a dentist that's licensed by the board in order to practice dentistry in Virginia. Okay, so not anyone can you can't just go taking digital impressions because you want to, right? It has to be under the direction of a dentist. And training is required in order to become a digital scan technician. So how does it work? Well, we want to scan. We're going to send it to the lab, which it gets sent immediately, probably within about 3 minutes or so. That gets sent to the lab, and then the lab fabricates the device and sends it back to us. There is an option, or there are scanners that use a CAD/CAM system, and it allows for in-office fabrication, which means that these patients can have one appointment And in that one appointment, they can come in, have that tooth prepped, and leave with a crown. They don't have to wait the traditional 2 weeks for the turnaround time. Image capturing. I kind of already spoke about this a little bit. So image capturing, there's 2 ways or 2 methods. Older scanners capture images by taking multiple still images and stitching them together with the software, but newer scanners use streaming video to capture images of the teeth and those surrounding structures. Now, I don't know about any other machine. I don't know the specifics of them, but I know that the iTero takes 3,000 images per minute. That is way more images than you can take with an intraoral photo. So you are going to get a lot more detail in those photos, or I'm sorry, in the scan, than you will ever get with intraoral photos. Scanning time varies between every machine or every system. It can range from 3 to 8 minutes, and I would even say it's going to be dependent on the patient and the intraoral structures. If those teeth are tipped, if you have any mesial drifting, if you have any missing teeth, if you have a patient who can't open as wide, it's going to take you a little bit longer to scan than it would take you with someone who has perfectly straight teeth in that arch. Correcting the scan. So some units have an ability to erase a scan to allow the operator to correct a portion of that scan and rescan only the specific portion. Okay, so if for some reason there's a spot in that scan that's a mistake, you can go in there, you can erase it, and you can rescan that, just that one spot, and the system will kind of stitch it together and correct it.
It's easy to use the iTero Intraoral scanner coverage
Software platforms. So some manufacturers have closed software platforms, which means that only systems that are the same can be used with that software, right? So if you get a CERAC, only CERAC systems will work with that specific software, just as an example, okay? But many are starting to use open softwares or open software platforms which allow images to be transferred and mailed or emailed on platforms that are produced by different manufacturers. This is a good thing because you don't know what the dental labs are using or what they can accept. So if you have something that's an open platform, it allows you the ability to do more with it versus if you have a closed platform. Shades. So there is one scanning device that incorporates a shade matching. It takes the shade of the adjacent teeth during the scan of the prepped tooth, and it eliminates potential for human error. Let's talk about the advantages. So there's lots of many advantages to digital impressions. The one thing I would say more, it really creates a permanent 3D image that's in color. You could do a pre and a post operative model. Those can be stored and reused indefinitely, and they do not take any physical space in the office because it goes up into the cloud, right? And so you don't have like a paper chart or a model or an actual model. Okay. Digital images can be used to point out problems to the patients. You can use them for educational purposes. Right? There's no need for impression materials, be it trays, alginate, plaster, trimmers. None of that will be necessary. There's not going to be any need for transportation of those x-rays to the labs. So that eliminates that. Okay. There's the ability to view the preparation on a magnified computer monitor to make sure that you have everything that you need. Okay, you are able to rotate that image, which allows you to evaluate it to make sure everything is correct before you send it to the lab. And with that erase tool, it allows you to correct that image. If there is a flaw or a void or something there, it allows you to immediately view it, correct it, so then you can send it to the lab, which helps eliminate the potential for errors. Images can be reviewed and retaken before sending them to the lab. One visit dental appointments. If there's a milling device in the office, it's easier for patients. It decreases the turnaround time for the lab because, again, they receive that scan pretty instantaneously or within like 3 minutes. Okay, so there's that immediate lab transmission, and it's more accurate than traditional impressions. I put this little photo up here of Iron Man because I always felt that because I could rotate the image and I could magnify it, it reminded me of his lab and what he could do. And it was a great educational tool for the patient. I could zoom in, I could literally show them their tooth on the monitor and show them what I was looking at, which was so much better than showing them an x-ray because they don't always know what they're looking at when you show them an x-ray. But when you show them a picture and it's magnified and you can circle it and you can write text in there, and not only can you do all that, but you can then send it or email it to the patient so the patient can view it once they've left the office. Advantages is going to include initial costs. The equipment is a little pricey, but keep in mind that you are getting rid of a lot of materials that you're using for traditional impressions. It does require training for the team. You do need training on how to use that equipment so that you're able to then educate the patients and use it on the patients daily. Okay. Lab fees for processing those digital impressions. Lack of space. right? So these machines sometimes are on wheels. If you have a smaller office, it's hard to find a spot to place them in the office. So sometimes space can be an issue, and you're unable to use it on patients who have limited openings. So if that person or that patient has temporomandibular joint disorders, it's going to be hard for them to keep their mouth open long enough to allow you to properly scan. Talk about soft tissue management. So most crown preparations involve replacing old restorations. So the digital imaging needs to capture the margins in approximately 0.5 millimeters of tooth apical to those margins. Some form of gingival retraction is still going to be needed, and good isolation is required, which is no different than traditional dentistry, right? The concepts are still the same. The impressions need to be free from blood, saliva, and debris. Again, it's no different than traditional impressions. You want to make sure that that area or the surface of those teeth are free from blood, free from saliva, and free from debris so that that impression is accurate and detailed. Intraoral scanners have better outcomes than traditional impressions. They're more accurate, there's less mistakes, the turnaround time is better, the patients feel more comfortable with it, you're able to educate the patients with it. I like to be able to, because the patient will come in multiple times, right? They come in at least twice a year. So I always try to scan them at least once in that year. More than once if I was able to, but at least once. And once I had more than one scan in the system, I was able to compare them and show the patient if there was any difference between the two. So if I've been telling a patient that they've been grinding and we've been recommending a night guard for 3 years now, and they're like, well, I don't think I grind, you're able to show them the tooth loss, the enamel wear from 5 years ago to today, and they can visually see that difference because it does kind of like a boomerang where it shows the previous and the current, previous and the current, which gives the patient the ability to actually see the difference and see that you are not lying to them and what you're saying is a fact. These really are a game changer, and I think it's going to change how we educate our patients. And I would highly recommend that if you implement this into your office, that you ask for a scanner specifically for you to use in your operatory at all times. Because having to share a scanner in the whole office, it's not going to allow you to use it on every single patient, and it's not going to allow you guys to use it to its highest ability.